Hello everyone, the Green Scorpion here, and here we have a weapon I've been hoping to take a crack at for some time. The hammer. Immediately, a small challenge arises. We just looked at axes. Isn't the hammer kinda similar? True, they have similar builds, being basically a head and a handle, and both tend to manifest as a slow but heavy weapon in video games. In fact, in Fire Emblem, hammers are filed as axes. But I like to look a little deeper than that. The hammer, unlike other weapons we've looked at so far, is a bludgeon. A hammer wielder isn't looking to cut, stab, or slash an enemy to death. He's looking to bash them in and knock them sky high. Or maybe they're trying to drive a nail. That is their purpose, after all. Hammers are very common household objects, so like scythes, whips, and axes, the hammer is pulling double duty if it's used in battle. To paraphrase Odin the Allfather, it is a great tool for building or destruction, depending on the will of the user. Hammers are a little less vicious than axes, and in video games often comical. They also can represent judgment or strength. I often find that those with the hammers in the video game department are either protectors of some kind of royal power or rebels hoping to establish a new order, tying in with the tool's duality. As usual, I'll be looking at what I think are the best, and make more of these observations as I go on. This is the top 10 greatest video game hammer wielders. As usual, only games I've played, and only one per franchise. Let's roll! I love Castle Crashers. It's fun whether you're playing solo or 4-player co-op, mostly due to the game's zany charm and offbeat sense of humor. There are a lot of characters to try as well, starting with the King's best knights: red, orange, green, blue, and gray. There's even a downloadable pink knight. With so many flashy characters and bosses, it was easy to overlook the kingdom's blacksmith. This guy works all day upkeeping the weapons you collect and storing them in this giant antlered frog's bowels. Is this really the best place to store sharp implements in a giant still breathing amphibian? You know, there's a perfectly good tent right there. He's not listening. He's probably daydreaming, for you see, the blacksmith has greater aspirations. A DLC pack for the game finally came along and granted the blacksmith the chance to defend his kingdom, as the Purple Knight. A blacksmith by trade, it's no surprise that his starting weapon would be a metal hammer, though don't be surprised if you trade it in for better stats. What you can't do is trade in his magic. Instead of the usual ranged spells that the other characters have, the Purple Knight lobs smelting hammers, known as the Flaming Hammers of Justice. If that's not good enough, he can also summon his frog. Believe me, this is normal compared to some of the stuff in this game. The pink and purple pals, Popo and Nana, together known as the Ice Climbers, are two of Nintendo's oldest adventurers, who got their start in 1984 climbing icy mountains to reclaim frozen vegetables. I don't think it was ever made official whether the two were siblings or friends. In the original Ice Climbers, the climbers would take turns braving the cliffs with only a giant wooden mallet to fend off vicious condors and polar bears. They would also break through the thick floors of ice. For whatever reason, Sakurai lifted these characters out of obscurity into the Super Smash Bros. Series, and I am so thankful for that. The Ice Climbers are unique in that they're the only duo character. You directly control one climber while the other is AI controlled and mimics your movements. One climber can do some pretty tough knockback swings, bat chunks of ice at enemies, or stand on its hammer to drop like an icicle. But when both are around, not only does their vertical recovery increase significantly, they get twice the attacks. I especially like it when they join hands and form a little hammercopter. Though considered to be the bottom tier by melee specialists, their potential was considerably increased for Brawl, to the point where they're now in the upper tiers. The learning curve is as steep as the Infinite Glacier, but those who master the slight delay on the second Eskimo's attacks can pull off some wicked combos. And if you time their grabs just right, you can achieve an infinite hold, with the two passing the enemy back and forth while the one with the free hand goes to town on the grappled opponent. If Nintendo never makes a return to the Icicle Mountain, that'd be fine with me as long as these two stick around for the Smash series. Yeah, Amy Rose is kind of annoying, and I find that she is one of the most hated characters in the Sonic series. Really? In a series that spawned Big the Cat and Elise, people have a problem with Amy? I feel bad for her. She's one of the oldest characters in the series, debuting in Sonic CD before even Knuckles was around. And not only does Sonic give her no respect, the fans give her no respect. Sadly, I think I get why she's so unpopular. She's a girl, and she's pink, and Sonic is perpetually trapped in his 90s elementary school mentality that girls are icky, right down to the main character running from her like she has cooties. I mean, look at the intro to Sonic Generations. Sonic holds her face like a playground bully, and everyone else, even Tails, just lets it happen and goes about their normal conversation. Jerks? Despite her original role as a damsel in distress, Amy is now one of the most formidable of the Sonic team thanks in part to her mighty weapon, the Pico Pico hammer. It's one of those giant heavy hammers that characters just seem to pull out of nowhere, and one swing will knock the woodland creatures out of most of Eggman's robots. The best displays of her power are probably in Sonic Adventure and Sonic Advance. She spins the hammer while keeping up Mach speed, and her hammer jump lets her reach ridiculous altitudes in a single bound. Also, consider this. Amy is usually in the speed class, making her almost as fast as the Blue Blur himself. She manages to keep up this velocity while carrying a 50-pound steel gavel. With strength and speed rolled up into one package, I'm starting to think Miss Rose might be out of Sonic's league. Speaking of girls out of leagues, here we have Rachel from the modern Ninja Gaiden series. She is a fiend hunter, and her weapon of choice is a warhammer. Unlike most giant warhammers, Rachel's is narrow and kind of resembles a giant upholstery hammer. Her paths cross with Ryu Hayabusa's often throughout his journey as she searches for her sister Alma, who has been turned into a fiend by a terrible curse. Wearing that. Well, what do you wear when you hunt fiends? She can be very condescending to Ryu, and she has a tendency to come and go via a convenient grappling hook. Though she was little more than window dressing in Ninja Gaiden for the Xbox, Ninja Gaiden Sigma brought her back as a playable character. Her moveset fits in nicely to the Ninja Gaiden mechanics. She's no Ryu, but what she lacks in swiftness she more than makes up for in bloody reupholstered spines. To her, it's all about evading until she can line up a perfect swing. In Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, she returned with the Inferno Hammer, which is even deadlier, with the machine gun thrown in for good measure. She's even stolen a few kills from Ryu. Anyone who can keep up with the #1 ninja of all time is a great warrior in my book. And in a game usually revolving around quick and light weaponry, her devotion to heavy-set weapons makes this busty bruiser really leave an impression. On your face! Red Faction Guerrilla is a sandbox shooter of sorts taking place on Mars after humankind has been terraformed, colonized, and tyrannized by the Earth Defense Force, or EDF. After the loss of his brother, miner Alec Mason gets a job as a rebel of Red Faction. His job? To get into EDF strongholds, cause mass destruction, and get out before too many feds arrive. Thus the title Guerrilla. If Alec sticks around for too long, a response team will riddle him with bullets. But in case of such an occasion, Alec has a full arsenal of weapons that work both for demolition and violent escapes. His first and most trusty weapon also happens to be the symbol of the Red Faction, the Sledgehammer. The Sledgehammer represents the rebellion, as it is used to bring down the establishment in more ways than one. The awesome thing about this game is that the environments are fully destructible. Glass shatters, concrete crumbles, and Alec's hammer is freaking Mjolnir. It alone can take down any wall and most enemies. If Alec gets trapped in a small enclosed space with a bunch of marines, he just has to start swinging. It won't be so enclosed when he's finished. There's not really much else to say, you just have to see it to understand. The Warcraft games are so rich with lore that while researching for this character, even the wikis provided me with enough backstory to make Tolkien furrow his brow. So here are the cliff notes. Thrall is an orc, captured by humans as a child and raised as a circus animal until he escaped and rejoined the Horde. In Warcraft 1, the Horde was influenced by demonic evils, but it was prophesied that Thrall would rise up and lead the Horde to redeem it of its dark past. With his combination of orcish strength and human tactics, he served under Orgrim Doomhammer until the Master's demise, at which point Thrall inherited his job and his powerful Doomhammer. He became a shaman, befriending the spirits of earth, wind, fire, water, and the wilds, and through such learned to infuse the elements into his hammer. In battle, he rides a frost wolf named Snowsong and utilizes lightning-charged swings in a way reminiscent of Thor. In fact, his name contains 75% of Thor's name. The Warcraft real-time strategy games emphasize armies and tactics over individual strength, but as a hero unit, Thrall leads the Horde with gusto. He is more than just a fighter. He is a leader, diplomat, general, and by World of Warcraft, a king. That's not to say he's nothing without his army. In Defense of the Ancients, he appears as the Disputer, utilizing static instabilities and even some control over time itself. And in Warcraft 3, he and Grom Hellscream went 2-on-1 against the demon that cursed the orcs in the first place, Manaroth. Though the Horde is typically viewed as the bad faction in Azeroth, Thrall represents all that is still good in them. With his hammer, he rebuilt the Orcish nation.
No, old friend. You freed us all.
From League of Legends, it's Jace, the Defender of Tomorrow. What, were you expecting Poppy? Well, the high-tech edge of Jace makes him the better pick for me. Jace is from Piltover, one of the most technologically advanced regions in the continent of Valoran, the other being Zaun. The difference is, while Piltover is a kingdom of progress for humanity's sake, Zaun is much less humane. This is why the cyborg Victor stole a powerful fuel source from Jace and, knowing his city was in danger, Jace invented this puppy, the Mercury Hammer. This marvel of mechanics shifts between two forms, a sledgehammer and a photon cannon, making Jace both a melee and ranged champion. In its hammer form, Jace can take leaping strikes to slow enemies, give off electrical discharges, and knock enemies back with his hypercharged sledge. The cannon form shoots shock blasts, has rapid fire component, and can even lay down acceleration gates and increase Jace's movement speed while he walks through them. Even better, firing shock blast through an acceleration gate gives you an explosive projectile. The Mercury Hammer gives Jace so much versatility that he has become one of the most popular top lane characters in the game. He can pick people off from afar, even while they're hiding under their turret, or he can leap in and bash their brains in while tanking the turret with the hammer form's added armor. It's a combination of offense, defense, and movement that made Jace one of the most used champions in the Season 2 World Championships. Every time I see him leap from the brush or charge through an acceleration gate, I find myself humming Captain Hammer's theme from Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. In fact, am I the only one who sees Victor and Jace as Dr. Horrible and Captain Hammer? It's almost spooky. Jace's upholding of justice in his lore also satisfies some symbolism, and as a vanguard of the City of Progress, you can always count on Jace to stay ahead of the pack. So maybe he isn't actually as talented as Thrall or Jace, but King Dedede just needed to be higher on this list. Let me see if I can articulate it. He's a penguin with a hammer. Okay, let me try to articulate it better. Dedede is the ruler of Dreamland, and his role fluctuates from game to game. Sometimes he's the bad guy, sometimes he's an ally, sometimes he seems like the bad guy but turns out to have been protecting the universe, and sometimes it seems like Kirby just breaks into his castle to beat him up and eat all his stuff. I think the consensus is that Dedede is well-meaning but kind of a bully. He somehow is really cute and really evil looking at the same time, and his giant mallet is the same way. I mean, it's as round and cartoonish as it can get, and even has a big star on its facing. But its size and the texture of the wood just lets you know that you do not want to get hit with it. After all, Hammer is one of the most damaging abilities in the Kirby games, and Dedede's got his permanently. He also has some of Kirby's floating and inhaling abilities, but with the girth of a heavyweight wrestler. He's pretty handy with that thing too. Sure, he can break down walls, like when he gives the pink hero Ride and Crystal Shards. In Subspace Emissary, on the other hand, he demonstrates a lot of finesse with the mallet, right after he completely owns Luigi. I also found him interesting in Brawl in that, while his heavy attacks were very, very slow, his hammer spins and movement speed were far faster than most heavy characters. And his mallet turns out to be motorized with thrusters that can add a few extra newtons of force to his swings. Then there's Mass DDD from Superstar Ultra. This is when he's really not messing around. Sure, it's not the Mercury Hammer, but it's made of steel, fires thrusters to make a hammer tornado, and has a chamber full of an endless supply of missiles. Looking at him as the DD dictator that he is, the hammer really makes a lot of sense. It's big and blunt like him, but it also commands a level of obedience. Much like a judge's gavel, it signifies King DDD as a foremost authority not to be trifled with. And that tends to be a big thing with hammers, authority. Alec wants to bring down the EDF and start a new order for the Red Faction, Thrall wants to break the Horde's ties and lead it to a better tomorrow, Jace wants to defend Piltover's moral superiority from the vile clutches of Zaun, and here, King DDD holds his hammer as a symbol of his dominion over Dreamland, threatening to crush all opposition. Too bad about the whole Kirby thing, huh? Now here's a franchise I don't usually talk about, Halo. Halo may not be my personal cup of tea, but even I have to admit that the play mechanics are great and the game's universe is expansive and teeming with rich lore. In Halo 2, we find Tartarus, chieftain of the commonly known Brutes. Brutes are the gorilla-like bruisers of the Covenant that make up most of their forces, along with the elites. The prophets who command the Covenant have been making some unwanted changes that is ripping the Alliance apart, and standing to defend their corruption is a silver-haired beast wielding the galaxy's largest meat tenderizer, the Fist of Root. The final boss of Halo 2, it takes the Arbiter and Sergeant Johnson's combined efforts to take this monkey down. Not only are his shields almost impossible to pierce, the Fist of Root is absurdly powerful and, when he swings it, he is able to manipulate magnetism and even gravity to optimize his destructive powers. He's tanky, agile, and can bat an elite like he's Babe Ruth. Boss battles aside, I'm just really happy Tartarus exists. Sure, he died in Halo 2, but his fighting style inspired an item that would be wieldable in Halo 3, the Gravity Hammer. I don't care about the battle rifle or the Spartan laser. I don't care about the sniper rifle, at least for this week. I don't even care about the energy sword. I always go for the Gravity Hammer because I want to knock my opponents into another zip code. And with the Spartan's already augmented strength, that's just some clever kiting away. As awesome as the Gravity Hammer is though, the Fist of Root is the prototype, and from what I am to understand, actually more powerful than its forebears. If it doesn't shatter your skeleton into a billion pieces, the ground will. Alright, before we hit the number 1 spot, let's recap. Number 10, The Blacksmith. Number 9, The Ice Climbers. Number 8, Amy Rose. Number 7, Rachel. Number 6, Alec Mason. Number 5, Thrall. Number 4, Jace, the Defender of Tomorrow. Number 3, King Dedede. And number 2, Tartarus. Well, I hope no one is too surprised. I almost didn't put Mario on this list because in most of his games, he's either a jumper, puncher, or fireballer, if not some combination. And there are plenty of other characters in the franchise to take his place. The Hammer Bros for starters, but also Smithy, Morton Koopa, even Bowser has gone into some hammer time when in a squeeze. But the more I thought about it, not only is Mario more deserving than them, he's the master of mallets. He inspired the almightiness of hammers for video games when he faced Donkey Kong in 1981, and continues that trend in his continuing rivalry against him in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. He wore a hammer suit in Super Mario Bros. 3, chunking them in waves at pitiful Koopas and Cheep Cheeps. He uses one while playing tennis and while at bat. However, his real power with the hammer comes from the Mario RPG series, Super Mario RPG, the Paper Mario series, and the Mario & Luigi series. They may not have much in common anymore, but Mario's hammer is a constant. He uses it to defeat the Smithy Gang, Cacletta, the Shroops, Fawful, Bowser, the Shadow Queen, Dementio, and Bowser again. Sometimes the hammer is upgradable to progress through concrete and steel blocks. Other times he uses an extra-dimensional pixel named Cudge to get the job done. He and his brother team up for some crazy duo attacks and swing them to deflect projectiles back at enemies. And as we can see in Partners in Time, he's been able to grip the handle since he was in diapers. But why do all of these little examples matter? Well, the fact of the matter is that Mario popularized the hammer as something that was in video games. It's a power-up in everything now, fighting games, MMOs, first-person shooters, and everywhere in between. Not that being a trendsetter makes a character the best, but despite having such a powerful franchise of platformers that don't use the hammer, it's always established that Mario can swing a hammer. He jumps on people, he throws fireballs, and not only is he a spectacular hammer wielder, he claims the title as the #1 greatest hammer wielder in gaming history. The defender of the Mushroom Kingdom built up the video game industry, and this is the tool he did it with. I am the Green Scorpion. Until next time.